if you go into a meeting, 80% of that meeting needs to be about your business. If it's going to be a business meeting, at least 80 to 90%. The 10% was share value because you're attractive, and you're a woman. So but it cannot be 80% bedroom talk and then 20% is no, we'll meet you at the office. Just call my PA. We'll set up a meeting. So where to from here?
Hey, Bulelani Balabala here. Welcome to the Small Business Podcast. We bring you weekly information, practical skills, and mentorship from industry professionals. This podcast is powered by T, an initiative that has directly impacted over 50,000 plus small businesses nationwide. This podcast is for small business owners who want to start, run, and grow their business. Follow us on all our social media platforms. #JoinUs4T. Every Wednesday is a new podcast. Good afternoon, good day. Thank you so much to every one of you amazing entrepreneurs that have decided to consistently and religiously listen to this podcast. I think the data that the team pulled up is that we've got a consistent 2,196 guys that listen to this podcast, and that's an amazing one because I think we're distributed to over 55,000 township entrepreneurs and SMMEs nationally that we work with through our organization T. And today we are on episode 25, man, the anniversary episode. And what better fit than to have this amazing entrepreneur, bulldozer, amazing, all-round amazing entrepreneur, came all the way from Durban. I feel like she just flew in for this podcast, but that's just a special me, feeling very, very special. But thank you guys yet again, I think, for participating in the podcast. Her details are up on screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, it's on the blurb. Follow her work, research what she does. It's very marvelous because I think how I sort of eventually found her and got her here is I sent her a DM and she's here today, and I really appreciate having her here on the platform. But just to kick off, and by way of introduction, today we've got in studio Mbali Bhengu, informally known as Mbali, who was born in Durban, South Africa, where she first tasted entrepreneurship and was discovered in the bustling township of KwaZulu, Mlazi. From a young age, Mbali thrived in performing arts, and in her early childhood, as soon as realizing that her passion is storytelling, crafting innovative business ideas, and and ultimately empowering others. And I think that's what stood out for me, right? I think when I followed your work, you see, this is what happens when you have a big gun in studio. You get ahead of yourself. Please introduce yourself. Just say hi to our listeners.
Thank you so much, Bulelani, for having me on your anniversary episode.
Yes,
I just feel just special. But thank you so much. As you have said, I am an author, entrepreneur, and self-published author. I just recently, launched a book. Not recently, rather, but it's been quite some time. But it's been taking, SA by storm. It's called Selfish: Mastering Self in a Selfish Business World, and it documents the business lessons that entrepreneurs never speak about. So I talk a lot about that. But most importantly is I consider myself as a serial entrepreneur. Yeah. So I've got a coaching and marketing development agency called Mind Switch. And then there is the cleaning part of life that came and was birthed out of COVID. So it's called Zizwe Cleaning, and that's got a staff complement of 15 employees. So I'm quite proud of that baby. But yeah, serial entrepreneur, author, and I love what you said, bulldozer. I've always been shy to say that, but you said it, so I'm happy.
No, you are, because I think where it sort of stems from is, I follow a lot of people, and sometimes I consider myself meticulous, but also very effy, right? About the people I want to work with and the sort, right? Yeah. And I think the one thing that has consistently happened with the sort of the desire and the proclivity to want to associate with you and work with you is your content kept popping up. And it's content that one could resonate with. And being an entrepreneur myself, has been doing it for 16 years or so. I could resonate with it. And I think at the back of my head, I then thought, it's simplified, it's simple, it's straight to the point. And how many more other entrepreneurs would be impacted, through interacting with the force that is you? But I mean, just let's track back just a little
Sure,
bit. Here you
sure.
are. Well, I think Mlazi, I'm so used to Wamashu, but I think Wapipi Mlazi.
Sure.
Did it ever dawn on you that you'd be an entrepreneur?
Not at all, not a chance. I think when I was growing up, I remember there was this exercise that my father did with all of the kids, and it was quite funny because my mom eventually said to him, "Why are you telling them what to do when they should do what they have to do?" So he sat us down and he wrote down a chalk on sort of a board, and he said, "Mbali, I think you need to be a psychologist." And he wrote there, psychologist. And then he said, "Lunga, which is my elder sister, you need to go into food." And then my brother was a sports maniac, and he was like, "Lu, sports management." But the parents never pictured me in entrepreneurship. In fact, I document in my book the early stages of what happened. So Mlazi, my grandmother used to sell ice lollies, iqeda. And as the youngest, I would obviously come back from preschool and she would babysit me. And that for me was a bit triggering. But I think that was my first taste of what entrepreneurship was, watching her sell ice lollies and making money and being able to save it and then put it in a bank. And I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. So that was my first taste, Mlazi. But really, at that stage, it hadn't clicked that, oh, actually, it could be, Yeah. So, and then as the years evolved, I just realized that, A, I'm stubborn, and I don't like being told what to do. And I realized that then this is perhaps where corporate, had that effect on me. Yeah.
How was the sort of transition? Because, you worked for multiple
Yes,
banks, right?
yes.
Multinational banks.
Yes.
How was the sort of trajectory, sort of jumping from, I'm now this corporate individual to now making this jump, I'm going to start mind switch?
Yes. Look, it was difficult. Emotionally, it was because I had to prepare myself and tell myself that, I'm moving back into something that for me feels right. Corporate also felt right. It was structured. It was, uniform. There was a salary. And then there was entrepreneurship where there was still a lot of question marks. But I did it regardless because I knew that my core essence wasn't happy, There was a part of me that even if I got a job and it was good, there was just this emptiness. It was just so sad, And I thought, well, maybe it's because you want to create something of your own. You want to create your own unique legacy. And then that for me started then triggering me to say, no, go back into entrepreneurship. And really, I cannot describe it. It just was me getting up and saying, no, I need to do this, and I need to go back and see what is there for me. But it was more of a mind game than anything. So me going back to school, I realized that I'm going to go back and I'm going to study my master's, but also it's an opportunity to network, you see, to meet these big guys and corporates, ironically, and see what I can do. And it didn't happen straight away. It took some time, but everything was strategic on my end.
One of the things that I sort of consistently pick up on is there's so many amazing women, right? Very strong, very sharp, and I think I sort of make this example on the basis of every time I'm sort of presenting to clients and corporates and the people that really just help in arching these ideas that we have are women, but I seldomly find them taking or marking their place in boardrooms and in corporate spaces and in business spaces, right? Where does the confidence come from? Where does your confidence come from? Because you've got so much of it. Yeah.
Adele once said something in a video when she was being interviewed by Oprah. And she said, I don't know where I draw my wisdom from, but I draw it from somewhere, wherever that may be. It's the same thing with me and my confidence. I have no idea where it comes from. But for somehow, some way, I draw it from somewhere. I think it's just a relentless pursuit of making it. That come what may, even if, I make a fool of myself, I have to make it. And I think perhaps that's what has been drawing people to say, oh, can we partner up? Can we do something? Because it's also an energy thing. Yeah. If I'm confident and we work together, we're going to kill it in the boardroom, But it's an energy shift, It's a transfer of energy. Because, if you hang on to somebody who's actually not that confident in themselves, somehow you also feel some type of way about yourself too.
No, definitely, yeah.
So I really don't know where I get it from, but I think from a young age, when I did performing arts, that confidence was instilled in me through debating, through public speaking. And I knew that, okay, I'm quite good at talking. I know how to talk. And then I thought, okay, sure. Maybe if I did this in business, it could click,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been an accumulation of things, really. But I mean, and I'm still working on it, by the way. I don't think I've reached, there are some people where I'm like, wait, and I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to talk to that person. And sometimes I can be deeply insecure, but it's there.
But now tell me, have you had moments where I think you sort of touch on it, but do you ever get into spaces and sort of feel like an inferiority complex, right? An imposter syndrome keeps picking in where you have to pinch yourself and ask yourself, but game vele long ngempela?
Yes, it does. And it comes often. Sometimes it's like, like you are here, But then I remind myself, okay, this is saying something to me. The fact that I'm here or I'm being nominated for this award and what, it clearly means that they see something in me. And sometimes I have to remind myself that, okay, it is real. It is real. So I don't let it get to me. But it happens.
What were some of your hardest or darkest moments in business?
Oh man, sure. There's
I
been
know
so
there's
many.
tons.
There's tons, yo. Look, I think the toughest one is when you have to manage people management. I'll keep it general. People are difficult. And I've realized that recently that, it's actually not a walk in the park to manage people. People come with attitudes, behaviors, their own ideas, some don't even believe that you should be managing them. And for me, that's been the hardest one to say, but I was, the vision started with me. So why don't you believe in me? And it's tough having to go through that. But I think to be specific, I would say, the day my car got repossessed, it was so sad. It was so sad. I mean, sitting in a meeting and, the bank is like, hey, what's up? Where you at? We know where you are. We come to pick the car up. And you're like negotiating like, I'm in a meeting. Don't come, to get the car. So I had to drop it off at wherever, the depot. And then, I have to drive back, I have to get someone to drive me back home. But I mean, that moment was like, this is tough. Yeah.
Sure. And I think, and I like that, right? Because I don't know, I've had so many of those moments, right?
Yeah.
And I think the beautiful thing about that is that there's this glamorization of entrepreneurship, right? And I guess there's the realness of the fact that you're consistently in debt and you might not be able to pay the people that your creditors and the sort and vice versa. What were some of your high moments? I mean, you won you got awarded the KwaZulu Natal Young Achiever Award in Business.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Yeah.
But also, I think for me, significantly, your SAP Kickstart nomination, your Standard Bank, Women of the Year Awards sort of nomination. And I like what you said, right, in acknowledging those, because a lot of the time we don't acknowledge these milestones. Because, I mean, if one is sort of picked out from 50,000 individuals, for the fact that they don't walk away with the actual prize, we sort of then look down on ourselves. But that win and achievement in and itself is a catalyst. What were your personal high moments in business?
Look, besides the awards and the nominations, I think still the biggest thing is being able to actually, and this might sound weird, but to keep the engine running. You know what I mean? For me, now that I look back at it, I'm like, I can have as many awards as I can because I know how to make myself look good. That's a fact. I know how to spruce myself up. But what does Mbali do on a day-to-day basis? My pride and joy is not the awards. It's being able to manage 15 people and give them bread each month. That for me. It used to be a money thing that I'm not getting any money and but now it's like, actually, I'm actually rescuing 15 people. And actually, it's all good, And I think for me, it's literally keeping the engine running every day. The minute the engine stops, I've failed. Yeah, so.
And then I think how important, because I think the work that you do, right? I mean, you've empowered and you've supported and offered business advisory services to over 400 entrepreneurs, right? I'd like to think exponentially, if we use the 10x effect, over 40,000, because these then go to touch others and they impact others, right?
Sure.
What sort of support structure did you get in your business, whether it's mentorship or coaching, that got you to this point where you feel like, now I'm going to take this knowledge that I have and share it with other people?
Look, it was meeting with the right people, definitely mentorships along the way, but I've never really had someone stick with me the whole way in business. I've met pivotal people who have helped me in moments of very, very bad times. And those are the people that I've stuck with. So I would say it's definitely been those people. Support structure, I have a pretty good support structure at home. My parents, at some point they said, just do what you have to do, because it ain't working the other side. So just let's see what you can do here, And I think they were just like, but you see, even me mentioning that, I'm going to do a podcast, there's a well done that comes from home. And that well done, especially from, black families. And we know there's a narrative about black families, black sheep, entrepreneurship is like, wenzani, uyasebenza. So there's always that well done that comes from home. There's that keep going. And for me, that's been the support structure. So I would literally, and of course prayer, praying and reminding myself that I think I'm actually doing pretty good this side. So I think I'll stay, you know? Yeah. But it's also through prayer and meditating. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the words of strains that are quoted in a business setting, in the words of Kanye, he says, when I look at my life, it looks like God is talking back.
You understand.
So, but now, Mbali, just tell me, what are some of the, because there's a misconception with a lot of us as business owners to say, well, marketing is a wasted exercise. I'm throwing money down the drain. It's not going to come back. Why even do it? What is your take on that?
Look, the minute you're not online, we don't know you. We don't know you. We don't know what you're about. Not unless someone is talking about you. Then you're lucky. Yeah. But I mean, marketing really is online. You just have to take it online because unfortunately we're living in a world where it's all digital. I come on a nice smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone. So if you're not online and present and consistent and persistent about what it is that you want to push into the world, then you must, be probably living in a bubble because unfortunately wonke umuntu uphila online. So definitely entrepreneurs, we need to market. And I'm not saying we need to be experts, but I'm saying that we need to have a presence. Yeah. And don't undermine the presence and how you advertise yourself, because at least you're trying, you see. So it doesn't have to be fancy like the way I do it. But I mean, it needs to be simple. It needs to be visually appealing. We want to look at it and say, this looks good, and draw us. And that could be anything. You could do comedy, you could do a skit, you could do a joke, but don't undermine what you have to present to the world. Yeah. Because that in itself is marketing.
But now, this is the part where we want to do it like you, because there's a gravitas, right? You sort of talk about it and you call it energy. But I think for me, it is energy, yes, but there's certain, and I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to unpack in the podcast is the process, right? Sure. So there's a gravitas about you and in how you position yourself and your personal brand, right? And how can a simple Bulelani or anyone else who's just listening to this podcast as I can now start to position and build on my personal brand?
Sure. Look, Nami, truth be told, I was very careless with how I positioned myself. And until one day, a friend of mine laughed at me and said, we can't take you seriously if you're going to call yourself a brand strategist and you're rocking up with Image NJ. So one day I said, okay, if I just take the effort, and yes, the effort is not as hectic as we think it is. What I did was I sat down and I said, if people were to see a picture of me and they were to be given 5 seconds to make a decision as to whether they want to do business with me, what would they choose? Yes or no? And then I thought to myself, okay, in fact, someone told me, said, Mbali, when you walk into a room, you must look like a marketing lady. When you walk into a room, you must look like a lawyer. So I then started doing a lot of photo shoots. I started changing my hair, and I speak about this in the book. I said I actually started changing my hairstyles. I started going for facials. Because I realized that if I'm in charge of making someone's brand look good, how dare I look ugly? And that's a fact. If I'm in charge of marketing your brand and empowering you, you need to see a vision through me and how I present myself. And then that's when I started. I said photographers, videographers, I started networking with. I started networking with makeup artists. I started networking with stylists. I started gathering a form of like glam team, if you can call it.
Yeah.
I then started saying I want to have professional photos for my websites, for my interactions, for when I'm doing shoots or when I'm featured as a keynote speaker. That was the first thing. The second thing is then I said, how do I sell myself visually without coming across as crazy? Then I thought, okay, there's tools like Canva that you can use. Canva, graphic design tools that are free that you can use, as well as other graphic design tools that are available. I started chopping and changing and styling myself using those tools, seeing how can I look good without having to go the extra mile of hiring a graphic designer. Of course, there were some points where I had to reach out to a graphic designer, but everything was so strategic about me that even when I post the content that you see, it takes me a good one day to come up with something.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to sleep on a design. I know I'm fussy. But you see, the fact that you have come back to me and said, I'm drawn to your content, means that one day gap where I thought about it, where I looked at it, and then I put it out there, it shows Uguti there was thinking behind it. Because if there was sloppiness, I probably wouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I did. And then I said, because I'm somebody that teaches business, how can I make it easier and simplified? And then the content that I started putting up became easier for the everyday person. But there was from head to toe. So you look at yourself from head to toe and assess yourself and see if somebody wanted to do business with me, if they had 5 seconds to say yes or no, would they actually say yes? You know, am I positioning myself well? So entrepreneurs, we really need to think about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, wow, I mean, that 5 second, I mean, I'll use it, right?
Yeah.
I'll say it because I think it's simple, it's basic, it's practical, straight to the point, right?
Yeah.
It's something that's clearly and easily attainable. Now, having worked with all the entrepreneurs that you've worked,
Sure.
from a branding, marketing, and positioning perspective, what are some of the common mistakes?
Oh, man. The first one definitely is the personal branding. So you don't look like what you're selling. And therefore, I'm not confident in you and what you can do.
Yeah.
You've got the skills, yes, but you've just not well presented. I think that's the phrase that I'm looking for. Why is that a big thing? Because there was a case where I had to step in and assist a young engineer who's brilliant, had thought up of something for a leading financial institution. And the manager said, can you not do the presentation? Eshomina. And I said, why? It's his work. And he said, the problem is he's just not well presented. You see, so already there was that gap. We undermine that. So anything that we come across, we want to be able to look at it and say, actually, that made me look twice. And that's why sometimes you'll find that some people are very attractive, but they are just selling nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's not because, they are dumb, but because they've taken their brand as a lifestyle. And they've said, I'm going to position myself first. And there's nothing wrong with that. You look at Kim Kardashian, and she's definitely not dumb. But you look twice. I'm sure. If you see her in a room, you look twice. And immediately, I want to know, what is she about? And then the second part of me saying, what are you about, is easy. Because after that, you've really seen the visual side of me. So that's the first mistake. We don't take ourselves seriously. The second one is we don't plan our businesses into success. We start off with saying, no, I'm just going to start a business because it looks good. But have you planned?
Yeah.
What is your value?
Yeah.
Who are you catering for? The third thing is there's just no financial vision, and it's a big thing. There's a vision and then there's a financial vision. So by the end of the year, you should know how much money you want to make. And most entrepreneurs don't know anything. They just want to, get the ball rolling. So I say, if you don't know the number, then how are you measuring yourself? You know what I mean? So that's the third thing. The financial vision is lacking. The fourth one is we tend to focus more on business plans, which is great. But anybody can do a business plan. In fact, there's a danger in allowing someone else to do a business plan, I feel.
Yeah.
Because, I can write a business plan for you and you probably get the funding. But do you really know your business? Do you have the technical skills? What are your weaknesses? Do you have someone to cover up your weaknesses? So there's this whole basket of things that we tend to undermine as entrepreneurs because it's so easy to register a business. I can register 5 businesses in one day. That's the easy part. But the thinking, the tactic, the strategy behind it, we tend to struggle with. And I think those are the mistakes that I've picked up.
If I'm an entrepreneur and at the simplest, I want to develop, I don't know, my sort of go-to market strategy, or just, just basically I now want to start marketing my business. What are some of the things I need to look at?
Okay, so the first one is, let's just say you're marketing on social media, picture quality. So these are some of the things that we're attracted to. The quality of your pictures, the pictures that you use, number one. The second one is your online presence. What are you saying to the public? Do you have key takeaways each time you post? Or are you just showing off? Because anybody can show off. Yeah. But if you're not directing us to your store, you're not directing us to your online link, we're never going to know. So your marketing needs to be so strategic in a sense that there's a key takeaway each time you engage with us. Number 3 is definitely, I would say, start using these tools, your Facebook ads, the Instagram ads, because they literally help you with everything. They help you set it up. So the content that you write, the pictures that you use, how many times it's going to be flighted on social media, and those tactics help you to get the reach. The fourth one is, quality over quantity, and I'll keep emphasizing. So people tend to think I don't have that many followers, but it's because there's no engagement, and I'm guilty of this, But the engagement needs to happen. So you need to be persistent with engaging with your team, and of course with your followers rather. So those are some of the things that I think are missing, and that entrepreneurs can start doing differently.
Then what drives you? What gets you up? I mean, entrepreneurship is hard. We sort of underpinned it in the beginning. But what gets you deciding, I'm going to wake up today, I'm going to give it another shot?
Failure is just not an option. With me, it is not an option. And I think, it's important that you have a mantra that I remember when I was still growing up, my mantra was, everything that you do is an autograph of yourself. So sign your work with excellence. That for me stuck with me through the longest time. I knew that everywhere that I set foot, there needs to be excellence written. There's just been this endless spirit in me that has always positioned me to say, stay focused and keep it going. Because surely, if you're still doing it by now, there's something you're doing right. Yeah. Surely. And for me, that really is what keeps me going. But also, being known for excellence, that's a good thing. Yeah. And also knowing that it's self-built, Of course, there were many structures and people that helped along the way, but yes. I've got the engine. And that, for me, is what keeps me going. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then, just give me an idea in terms of, so you've spoken about your lowest moments, but how do you then deal with rejection, right? Because I've sort of felt like that is what drives a lot of entrepreneurs or aspirant entrepreneurs away from just even embarking on it, right? How do you deal with that? Because, consistently we're sending out proposals, then, no, not this time, next year, whenever, you're not good for this. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Look, treat rejection as an opportunity to do better. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you are not interested in being better, then perhaps you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Ooh. But for me, it's a tough one. It's a crazy one. But you see, rejection is part of the game. In fact, there will be 90% rejection that will happen. The art of it is to treat it as a means of getting better. Yeah. And how do I deal with it? It all started on my journey back to entrepreneurship when I just decided to go out of corporate. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what can I do to get myself back in to the game. And I remember reading a book by Seth Godin, marketing. It's a marketing book where he speaks about creating communities in marketing. And he says, the art of marketing is having your niche community, your audience. And I thought that was powerful. And then I thought to myself, okay, sure, sharp. Okay, I'm reading all these books, but no one's really talking about the nasty issues that happen in entrepreneurship. Because I'm done with hearing about the good stuff. You're not going to sleep. And, that information is outdated. I want to know what happens if an entrepreneur needs to go through, and sorry, as crude as it is, needs to go through a sexual favor before they get the deal. Because guess what? It's happening. I want to talk about BE fronting. How do we address the notion of BE fronting? Because it's happening. I want to know about the black sheep who can't pay black tax. And I want to talk about personal branding and how messed up it is when people send proposals that have grammar mistakes. And those were the lessons that I was more interested in, that are documented in the book. So the book has 28 business lessons. And these business lessons talk about my mental health journey. They talk about, being a woman in business, a black woman in business, coming from a black family. They talk about not being able to pay black tax and ultimately being labeled as a black sheep. Mbali wenzani, which was painful because that also then triggered me to keep going. BE fronting as well. There were people that approached me and I could see that this is not legit. They just want to use me as a front, That in itself was painful. So literally it's a book of painful business lessons that are controversial, taboo, we don't talk about. Why did I write this book? Because there was no book that had that, And I thought to myself, but imagine if we could get a book like that for entrepreneurs. And it's not just, you're not going to sleep, every day and what. It's actually a book where it makes you question yourself as well. And you get to test your character and say, am I really cut out for this? If this is what I'm going to face, But the beauty of it is that each lesson, there's a little hint and tip at the end as to how I coped with it, what you can do. And I tell people that, if you're going to meet up with a ringleader of a person, somebody who just wants all of the cake and doesn't want to give you anything, that's not worth pursuing, even if it's a client or a business partner. I tell people how to fire clients because I feel like there are some clients that are just going to waste your time, It's either they don't pay you on time, they don't look after you, and so that book really, I would say it's a Bible. And then at the end of the book, there's practical resources for the book. So there's, templates that I've used. There's something called the Blue Ocean Strategy that I feel entrepreneurs can read. There's how to hire and fire your employees, which is something that entrepreneurs tend to not know. So we get ourselves into trouble. There's contracts in place. There's financial budgeting. It's all there in the book. And I think, I'm thinking of a version 2 because after that book, there's been so much that I'm like, people need to know about this,
But as a woman in business, because I had one lady in studio by the name of Siba, and I think, she shared just a bit about some of the challenges, right? To say, one of her crashing and lowest moments was on a big deal that she had worked on. And was now being told, we love the deal, we'll work with every other shareholder, and all of them were male but you because we don't trust you. And she asked, but why? She said, no, purely because you're a woman. How do you navigate this? Because you then hear stories. A different lady engaging with, and she says, she's going to these guys, she's got a CADB grade 7, which says that she's got skin in the game. But when she shows up to these presentations and proposals, instead it's let's go upstairs. Instead it's here's 5,000, pay for dinner, buy yourself some water. But I'm not here for that. How have you navigated through this?
Man.
And is there even a formula to navigating?
The biggest formula is to respect yourself. And I think that if you don't respect yourself, then unfortunately, once again, question if you should be an entrepreneur. Because unfortunately, there are some very unfortunate circumstances where you're right. It will start off, there's a chapter in my book called There's a Meeting in My Bedroom. Because there's a point where I experienced that with an executive who said, come through, but come to room. And then I was like, so I turned around. And it got me thinking, and I said, imagine how many women have to go through this, So the unfortunate thing is that there is no model. It really starts with self-respect. do you respect yourself? And the only way that you can understand if you do is if you picture yourself getting caught in such a situation. What is the impact of you being caught? And of course, we're human. Mistakes will happen. Maybe you will be desperate one day and you will go for something, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you really need to think about the work that you've done and see what can you do differently and take the loss, take the L. If really it turns out to be a fishy deal, let it go. Move on, but and don't be afraid of saying it wasn't for me, So I think it really, the thing with entrepreneurship, you need to constantly check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Ooh.
You really do. You need to check yourself and you need to sort of speak to yourself and audit yourself and say, does this feel right? It's your gut. And remember, your gut is it's like your God within you. So if you cannot listen to the voice within you, we can't help you, So, unfortunately, it's the world in which we live in. These situations do happen. Being a woman is difficult. And being in power as a woman is extremely difficult. There is undermining that does happen. People tend to think of, how can I benefit from Mbali physically before I give her the material stuff?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that seems to be the narrative, And unfortunately, the more you experience it, the more you woke, So that, and I speak about, I say, if you go into a meeting, 80% of that meeting needs to be about your business. If it's going to be a business meeting, at least 80 to 90%. The 10% uzoshelwa vele because you're attractive, and you're a woman. So but it cannot be 80% bedroom talk and then 20% is we'll meet you at the office. Just call my PA. We'll set up a meeting. So where to from here? It can't be like that. You need to stick to the course.
But now, firing clients.
Yeah.
Have you had to fire clients? And how was it like firing a client? But not even how was it like. Have you fired clients? And over and above that, what led to you firing clients?
Sure. Look, I have fired a client before, but it wasn't a blatant "I'm firing you." I tried to pass on the lead to someone else, that I felt could handle the situation better. But that is a way of getting rid of a client. Why did I do that? A, payment was not being done on time. B, unrealistic demands. So at the last hour, there's an expectation to deliver. And if I don't deliver, it's a problem. And I'm thinking, but it was only communicated at the last hour. It becomes unfair to my staff and to me as well. C, also just finding out that, generally this specific client has got a bad reputation as to how they work. Do you really want their clients in your portfolio? I think what helped me more than anything, this whole thing of clients, was in banking, when I used to work for a specific bank, and they put me through a course called relationship banking. And in that relationship banking, there was an exercise that we had to do about client management and client portfolio. So as a private bank at that point, I had to make sure that a lot of the clients that I had in my basket were clients that were actually making money for the bank.
That's it for today. If you like that podcast, show us some love and share it with your network. Once again, follow us on all of our social media platforms, #JoinUsForTea, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Shout out to Joe Public for making this possible. Remember, Sisonke Rikaufela and Foster Njengomzegezege.